Hi everyone, today I'm back with another episode of the We 3, and if you didn't catch the first episode, then if you click on the link, the exclamation mark here in the corner, that will take you to the other episode and you can see what it's all about. But as a brief summary, it's essentially setting the bar really low and expectations and all the pressures that come with trying to get started into a new routine or a new exercise routine. Or for me, it's about trying to get back into filming on a more regular basis and setting the bar so low, like with just 3 exercises. The point is that it's not overwhelming, and it's about getting started and re-establishing a consistent routine again, that surpasses any kind of fancy workouts or particular styles of training, because ultimately none of it matters if you can't continuously do it over time and repeat it. So that's the whole point of this. The We 3 is about making it less intimidating, less overwhelming, and basically doable, and something that you're more likely to do and will do right now. And to kind of, include my own workout in this idea, and of course a train's going to come by, is that my workout may even be too overwhelming for you right now. And so so this train, that's the one time. And yes, my workout is included in that. So even this workout may seem too overwhelming for you right now. And so for those people, what I'll say is choose one thing that you know you will do. And it may not be anything in this workout. It may be something that you already can think of that you would enjoy and you'd be very likely to do right now. But one thing that's holding you back is the thought that it's maybe not enough. And so the point of this is that doesn't matter. What matters is that it builds up and everything will add up, and it will become an encouragement to you because you're more likely to succeed and you're more likely to actually exceed your expectations in these situations where you set the bar so low. So that's what we're really aiming to do. We are aiming to set it so low that you almost think it could hardly be enough, but it's definitely doable. So let's try and do it. So today is going to be a similar setup. There's going to be the 3 rounds of 3 exercises. At the beginning, I'm going to run through all 3 exercises. I'm going to give instructions and I'm going to offer ideas for regressions, progressions, and in some cases substitutions, just to offer up a bit of variety so that it gives you almost like a creative boost so that you can think of possibilities for yourself. Because ultimately you don't need to do anything that I say. You have to know yourself and what you will do. So once I offer those options, then hopefully that will get things kind of popping up, maybe brainstorm what it is that you'll do. And then if you do want to sort of join in or continue to watch the video, maybe it'll help build up, make you kind of raring to go, then first 2 rounds I'm just going to do as I used to do them in the videos. I used to edit them and kind of just give a clip of like 2 or 3 reps. Give you an idea of the flow of the workout, see them done a few times, and then the final round I'm going to leave as a full round which you can train along with me, and then obviously you can replay it again if you are doing more than 1 round, or you can pause it and go and do whatever it is you thought of. And as always, I do encourage you to share this video, subscribe, obviously, if you want to hear more about this We 3 and see more of these episodes, subscribe here and also share with people who maybe think will benefit from this message. So what I'm going to do is warm up and then get ready to show you the introduction to the workout, and then we'll get on with it. Okay everyone, so as you can see I've changed outfit, and that's because I had technical difficulties the other day when I filmed the introduction. and I realised then later that the camera had failed me in recording the rest. So today is my second attempt. I had to leave it a few days because I was so annoyed about the situation. But today I'll just go through the exercises and redo the workout, and because it was actually a really good one. So the first exercise is the hip thrust, and I'm going to be doing the single leg version. Most beginners should be able to do this with 2 legs because there's not much stability required. The only problem is that if you've not practiced these kind of bridging exercises where you're really squeezing the glutes and lifting up into hip extension, there are a couple of things that can sort of make it less efficient and kind of missing the point, i.e. that you want to have glute activation, and a lot of people don't have that, especially when they first start these. And that's why I recommend starting with glute bridges, which I'll show you in a minute, because the hip thrust is a progression of that technically, because you're first of all less stable because you're up against a bench, whereas in the hip or the glute bridge you're lying on the floor, so you have good support. And the second reason is you're increasing the range of movement through the hips, and so that in itself will make it more challenging. So I'll show you anyway. First of all, what I'll do is show you the 2 leg version, and then I'll show you the variation that I'm doing, which is the single leg. And then what I'll do is quickly show you what this looks like from the floor, and it's really simple. It's probably one of my favourite exercises that I've actually been able to add back in. So with 2 legs, I'm going to sit up against a bench. Now this is around 16 inches I think, and it's a good height. Some steppers are lower than this and they're not as good, although it's fine as well, and you can try it out and see. I've also done these up against the sofa, where the seated part of it, and that usually works pretty well. So I'm going to have it around where my bra strap would be, and that means I can getting a nice sort of hinge back, and I'm not too far down, I'm not too far back. So really what I'm doing is putting my feet a little bit wider than hips, so around shoulder width, and then I'm going to make sure that my whole foot is planted, and leaning back I'm going to maintain some core tension as I just go up into a tabletop position, and this is the bridge obviously. Now a couple of things that typically happen for people who haven't done this exercise is that they will not be able to get their hips up into this flat position, and this does happen, it comes with time. And the other thing that might happen is that on your way back down you kind of leave your shoulders up here, and then you flare here and sort of splaying back, and really you end up kind of doing this. And what you want to do is kind of keep the tension at the front so that your head and neck follow, tap on the ground, and then you can drive back up again. That means that you're really just encouraging the movement to really happen from the hips, rather than kind of, you don't know where it's happening from. It's harder to gauge what's going on. So try not to use the elbows digging them in either. I see a lot of people doing that. Just let yourself hinge. And if it's because this is uncomfortable, then use like a padded part or something to make it a bit softer. The other things that can happen is the foot position can actually, because I want to get like a fairly vertical shin when I'm up in this position. So that means it's hard to gauge, because when you're down here you don't know what angle that's going to be. But what you want to make sure you don't do is, if you're bringing them in too close, then your knees are going to be way forward, which is uncomfortable, and plus you can really feel that way more in the quads. And then the other thing is that if you put your feet far too far away, then it's not bad, but I've heard like a lot of people will feel that more in the hamstrings. So if you can get your foot underneath your knee as much as possible when you're in this position, then you're at a better sort of leverage for the exercise. And even if you're not doing it with weight, you still want to have that in place for when you're doing these. And that really covers the 2 legs. Now when you're bringing this into a single leg version, then your legs go from the wider position to narrower, so that your foot is basically in line with your hip, so that you're not as likely to kind of go off balance. You want to keep things up, both hips kind of up in alignment with each other. And that with this leg, you can kind of keep it straight. I don't really like that because I find that uncomfortable, so I usually bend it up. And what you'll see me do on the other side is actually just put my foot over like this and rest it. And that, from the other side, I need a bit of stability added, and this gives my leg a little more stability, like so. Now to regress this, well, if you want to progress it, in fact, you can add weight. But if you want to or need to regress, then you go down onto the floor and you can have more stability through the back, and then you're going to go again a little bit wider than hips. Distance wise, you can gauge this by about a foot's distance away from your butt. That's where you're going to place your feet. And from here then it's nice because you can kind of cue what your abs are doing. You just flatten as if you're trying to stick your back to the floor, and then you're just going to peel your pelvis up and into the top position, just squeezing with the butt, and then you're going to reverse that. You're going to peel yourself back down again, same way you came up. You just go back in reverse, peeling up. Now the thing about this is it'll feel like you're not really lifting up very much. So what happens is, in order to try to push it higher, you lose your nice alignment here, and that means that you're really just sticking your chest up. You're not really getting any more glute activation, and so this position can kind of happen very, very frequently. So just go up a little bit from here, like that, keeping this kind of flat-ish is a good gauge. Single leg version of this, same thing. You're going to bring your foot in close, in with alignment with your hip, and then up. Same principles apply. But when it's a single leg, you really don't feel like it's going up that much either. So if you can kind of realize that and sort of expect that, then you're not going to try to push beyond where you really are. There is an in-between, and that is the foot elevated glute bridge. It's called a glute bridge because your back is on the floor. So anytime you're lying with your back on the floor and you're doing a bridging exercise, then it's called a glute bridge. Anytime your shoulders are up against something, then it's called a hip thrust. Technicalities are important, people. So I'm going to try to do this on my bad side, but essentially you're going to sit, shuffle yourself up so that your femur is at a right angle to the floor or thereabouts. This is a good gauge for doing this. So you can do 2 legs up onto the bench, and I find it better to kind of push into like the edge rather than putting my feet up here and going on my heels. I don't really like that. So I use my bit of the sole or the arch of my foot, and then I'm going to, again, peeling up and then peeling back down again. As you can see, you're getting a good range of movement here, and it's actually, I find this one harder to cheat on in terms of like arching, because you're like way up, so it feels like you're going to fall back on yourself. So the only thing with this one is that if you're not on a good grippy floor, you can kind of push yourself way out. So every so often you might shuffle back in again. And again, wider for 2 legs, so you can kind of experiment if you want. There's no strict rule about that, but when you're doing single leg, you will need to bring the leg in alignment with your your hip. Okay, so there you go. There's a few different options, and you can play around whether or not you're doing weighted versions or whether you're doing double leg or single leg. Now if you're doing double leg and I'm doing single leg, then that will mess up the intervals, because I'm going to have 2 intervals for that exercise, so that I can do 1 interval for my right side and one for the left. So you may have to do 2 sets of that to make up for my one. So moving on then, I'm going to show you the alternating row, and I'm going to be using a bench. There's my dog. The next exercise is the alternating single arm row with a support. Now you don't have to use a support, you can do a bent over row, and I'm doing this with the bench because it adds a little more obviously support, but because of my not so good leg, that means I don't need to worry about stability so much, especially since the exercise before has required a little more stability in that side. So that means that so that I prepare to alternate this, when I set it up, whereas normally I'll have the weight underneath the working side, directly underneath the shoulder, I'm actually going to set it in the middle a little bit, and I'm going to have a nice wide support. I'm going to make sure that I'm facing the floor so my hips aren't twisted. I'm trying to keep them square, keep my shoulders square, keep the rest of me fairly straight. And then what I want to do is hand over, and I'm going to row to the side, trying not to rotate too much through the torso. Just isolate that to your upper back, let your shoulder blade and your arm sort of go back. Try not to shrug, keep the shoulder down and back. Now, once I finish this side, then I'm going to put my hands, swap my feet, and then do it on the other side, like this. Like so. Now, if you don't have a weight to row, then I was thinking what you could do instead, and there's a couple of things. You can do like an upper body, well, it's more like a core thing. It's body weight renegade row, either up on the bench or on the floor. If you're up on the bench, it's easier. So feet wide, hands a bit narrower, shoulders over hands. You're going to go into 3 points, tap your hip, and then bring it back down. So when you're here, you don't want to rotate either. You want to keep square to the floor, using your core. You can pause here for 1, 2, down, 1, 2. It's more difficult on the floor. It's also more difficult the narrower your feet are. And either way, try to get into the habit of keeping your hands underneath your shoulders. Unless you want to do a long lever, and that's more challenging on your core. And if you were going to do that eventually with weights, then there's no point in putting your arms out in front. So that's the row. And finally then is the mountain climber, and this is fairly straightforward. When I'm modifying this, I'm going to be having my hands up on the bench, but the same principles basically apply if you're doing this on the floor. And remember that I'm doing this on a high bench, but you may not need to make it this easy. You could put it halfway, or like I said, on the floor, but just know that it's not just either here or here. Like, there's different ways that for you can modify it so that it's suitable for where you're at right now. So into your plank position, once again, shoulders up over the hands, and then your feet aren't wide, they're narrow, so you're going to basically knee up, and then you're going to swap like this. You want to try, it's not really that you're going to be hunched up, you want to keep your back fairly straight, and then you're just going to alternate here. Now, what happens usually is people can end up like way out here, or their legs are coming up and more hunched by the end of the interval. So that's something to watch. Keep an eye on where your hands are, and if they start going way in front or something, then straighten out and or stop and kind of regroup, and then start again. Start off slow, get the rhythm, and then you can kind of try to speed it up as much as you can. Those are the 3 exercises. The mountain climber is fairly easy. If you can't do that one though, then what you can do is standing and kind of just high knees, or jogging on the spot, something. Well, after all that, I'm saying I do single leg. I'm going to do single leg on my left, and then I'm going to do double leg for my right side, because the single leg is not working on that side today. Which has become a little bit more problematic than I wanted. So I'm going to do 2 legs, a little bit narrower, so I really hit the quads and can lean more into the leg that I'm wanting to work. Oh, death. For our full round, single leg hip thrust or double. You do 2 sets of the double, by the way. This is just body weight. So if I'm doing single right now, driving up, remembering to keep the abs engaged so you're not arching, flaring out the chest. But if I get too tired, either I'll just stop and rest, or I could take over with 2 legs for the rest of the interval. And then I want to try to do what I can on one side. Remember, try to feel this more in the glutes. Okay. Now I'm going to get ready to do my modified single leg on the other side, and bringing the legs in a little bit closer for this as a double. I'm going to just try to focus on my right leg. So that's where I'm kind of trying to shift as much weight as I can. If that doesn't work, I'll just go back to standard double, which actually feels way better, so I'll continue with that. If you're doing single leg, you're going to keep your foot in line with your hip, and then making sure that you've got good stability. Squeezing with intent at the top to get into your hip extension, and actively think about squeezing your glutes at the top. Oh, my glutes are on fire. Okay, so turning over now, and grab your weight, or if you're doing your renegade row, then get ready for that. Place the weight in the middle each time that you're finished toward, so that you can more easily swap, so you're not reaching all the way across. Swapping your hands and feet over, keeping your hips and your shoulders facing forward, square as much as you can. Some rotation may happen. Remembering not to shrug up with the shoulders, and keep a nice steady pace. If you have a lighter weight than you can, then you can go faster. So, final exercise of our wee 3 is the mountain climber. I'm going to use the bench this time to modify it slightly. Shoulders over the hands, bring a knee up, and then swap, get into the pace, and then speed it up. Trying to keep the back as straight as you can. Try to stop and start if you need to, like me. You can slow it down as well. You can also step like this, or you can keep a nice gentle jog. My abs. Okay. That's it done. Okay everyone, that's it for today. Another wee workout done, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as me. The schedule is kind of messed up now because I was hoping to do 3 of these in a week, and I don't know how realistic that is because each video takes a long time to do, and because my camera decides to cut out halfway through sometimes, it becomes a very long drawn out process, and it completely defeats the purpose of why I decided of the wee 3, because it was a very low bar and now all of a sudden the bar is becoming higher and higher. So what I'll do is as many of these as I can. I think 2 right now is going to be realistic for this week, considering that because of the holiday we're halfway through the week now. But I do want to continue with this concept, and especially because I was thinking of another reason why I really love the idea of the wee 3, or at least wee workouts, is that it really, or the idea that the pressure's off in this, everything that you have to do. I'm just saying, here are options for you, and you get to decide yourself. Like, you get to be a little more creative than normal, like in some of these workouts. Like, okay, if you didn't have certain equipment, you might have to be a little more creative there, but this gets you thinking about what you actually enjoy. And one idea I thought of, I think I did this years ago, was a lucky dip workout where I just like had a pile of papers written all these little exercises, and I just chose out like as many, like I think it was 7, but say you chose 3 and you did those 3, but the bag of exercise possibilities was ones that you knew you would do, and you knew that they were all good, and it was just a mystery as to what the combination would be, and that you would suspend all judgment about order and sort of balance in the workout, just so that you could get back into it and do the stuff you liked. It could be like bicep curls followed by chin-ups followed by whatever other upper body exercise you like it doesn't matter. Like, that stuff is just secondary right now, that we can establish you onto some sort of regular routine again, and then kind of build up from there. But that was just another little thought I had. But anyway, if you think this is something that you would like to see again, then subscribe to the channel and stay updated on any new posts. And also, like I said before, just to pass it along to anybody you think might benefit from this. Maybe they're always trying to fit in huge workouts and do everything. Maybe they're just burning themselves out and they need to take a step back if they want to. Or maybe they're people who are really just struggling to get started again, or started at all and don't know where to start. So this is a great place for many people to start on a new path, something that has a little more, I don't know, possibility, that it's just what it is. It's just a wee workout.